Soos ek vroeër gesê het, gesels ons vanaand oor ouma kinders. Soms as ouma die primêre versorger en ander kere bly die kinders by ouma terwyl mammy en daddy moet gaan werk. Om meer hieroor saam met my te gesels is die kliniese sielkundige. Julle ken haar baie goed, Dr. Lizelle de Wee. Baie lekker om jou terug te hê hier. Goeienaand. Enige memories, spesifieke memories van jou eie ouma?
My ouma het destyds baie gehou van bak, my oorlede ouma nou. So we would usually spend copious amounts of time baking apple pie or malva pudding, definitief.
Doen jy dit vandag?
Ek kan bak, ja. Ek is 'n baie goeie bakster.
Wat is die tradisionele rol van 'n ouma?
I would say traditionally, as another generation nurturer, an extended form of nurturing, you know. Oftentimes the more softer version than the primary authoritarian figure of nurturing. One that's meant to comfort and guide and really just lend an extra holding hand in extension to, in most circumstances where it's the usual, you know, the usual parenting platform, in addition to just the traditional mom or dad, or whether that's a primary caregiving role that consists out of a single parented family. You know, these days we have all different variants of family constellations, so to speak.
Wat sou jy sê, is dit 'n goeie ding as ouma, soos jy nou verduidelik het, so amper 'n bietjie sagter is, die kind amper met bietjie meer laat wegkom as wat die ma sou?
Is dit 'n goeie ding?
Is dit 'n goeie ding?
That's debatable, Hein. Really, because we bestow the primary role of caretaking to who spends most time with children. But of course, in different family households, that situation varies. It's different in every single family makeup. Whether it's a good thing, again, it's debatable. You know, usually grandparents represent a different generational take on aspects, and they come with different worldviews and different opinions and different values of things. And I think maybe it's a very solid introduction to different ways of negotiating different aspects of life.
So, ons twee vorige gaste, Craig Smith en Romente Botha, het vir my hieroor laat nadink, is oumas amper meer liewer vir die kleinkind as vir hulle eie kind, of is dit 'n geval van ouma kry nou amper 'n tweede kans om beter te doen?
So first time around, you know, and I see this even with parents that are parents to more than one child, is that it's almost as though you need to reinvent the wheel depending on the particular child. So you are a different parent to child 1 versus to child 2. When it comes to grandparents, by the time they kind of graduate to the role of being grandparents, they would have had a first stint of parenting. So they would have tested the waters, all periods as far as trial and error is verby, you know. So they get to be different people in a different moment, in a different, actually historical moment in time to who they were initially. So they've tried and tested this particular way of being, and so by the time the grandkids usually come around, they can experiment far lighter ways of being, as opposed to who they initially were in the younger years of those trial and error ways of doing things. So by all means, they are different people by the time, you know, the little ones come around.
Wat doen dit aan die vorming van daai kind? As dit veroorsaak dit nie bietjie konflik binne die kind nie en binne die verhouding tussen die ma en die ouma, want ek hoor eintlik al hoe sê die kinders, ek wil na ouma toe gaan, I want to go to granny.
Want hulle bederf gewoonlik, right? Whether it creates a form of conflict, I think not necessarily, you know, conflict can be a good thing in the sense that it just depends on whether you're able to absolve it in a controlled way. It actually creates an instance whereby a child is exposed to different ways of being about a very similar topic. And so it's almost a microcosm in a way of the world outside. Right? So if we, for example, agree that this particular vase is red versus the other person holding the opinion that this is blue, it gives kids a very good form of role modeling to see that you can actually hold different opinions about one thing and agree to disagree in some instance, you know. So in essence, what happens therefore in the household is a good example of what can actually happen in the extended world on the outside. So it's 'n goeie voorbeeld.
En daar on the outside kan jy dikwels vind dat die kind raak of 'n overachiever of die kind is so gewoond aan daai nurturing dat daar nie veel met hom of haar gebeur in die groot menslewe nie.
So dat hang natuurlijk af, you know, the degree to, or the extent to which there is nurturing. Sometimes there's overparenting also to some extent, which then robs the child of just the opportunity to exercise what we call free will. Because mom says that, and dad then says that, and on top of that, grandpa and grandma say this or that, and there's little opportunity therefore to explore the world freely in their own capacity. So daar is natuurlijk nadele, you know, to a certain degree, and to some point, at some point in time, as parenting figures, because that's actually what grandparents are, extended parenting figures, is that they actually, in some instances, need to stand back a little bit and just have the child explore a little bit some of their own viewpoints, but also the opportunity to make mistakes on their own. Yeah.
Ons weet dat daar is die, jy weet, as jy luister na Romante het vir ons vertel, haar ma het in 'n ander plek in die Kaap gaan werk en hulle is in George, so ouma moes kyk of ouma grootjie moes kyk na. In kykgenot se geval was dit ook 'n geval van sy ouers werk, so ouma neem daai rol oor. Maar ons weet in ander gevalle is dit missing ma's en missing pa's wat die ouma dwing om die ma rol oor te neem. Wat sê mens daaroor?
I think my first just answer to that is the fact that it's unfortunately part of the South African reality. We wish that it wouldn't be the case, but it just is in some instances a situation that unfolds as a natural condition in many South African families. And thankfully, we see in many situations that grandparents do find their way to just come to the party irrespective, because, you know, any parent, my own included, would probably say your role as a parent never ends. You know, so you would stand in as being a parental figure in many instances, even if the child is 50 years of age. You know, you would still be parenting. But in any case, to answer your question about that, it is of course not a desirable position, but it does unfold, and to some extent in some communities it's less common than in others, but it happens in the same way that we have single-headed households or child-headed households. It's just unfortunately, you know, a condition of the South African landscape in some degree.
So kom ons eindig nou op 'n happy. Wat leer jy jou kinders hoe moet hulle oumas celebrate?
By respecting them, by respecting their differences in opinion. And me personally, I ask them to please explain to their grandmother the psychology of TikTok.
Hulle moet maar Uncle Heining dit kan verduidelik.
Want sy verstaan dit actually so lekker nie. So yeah, they do try. They try.
Baie dankie vir jou tyd vanaand en jou insigte, Lizelle de Wee. Ons hoor na die breek wat van julle en julle se kinders se boodskappe aan hulle oumas is.